Well, gee, thanks, Harry. I just looked up and it said go. Welcome to the Talk Fest, better known as the show, here on 103.5 FM WNHH, NewHavenIndependent.org. And the reason why it's a Talk Fest is because I don't have a guest. So, with that said, I get to talk about almost anything I want within, reasonable bounds. My name is Michelle Turner, and I have been the host of this show going on 4 years now. And it is always fun, but it is always a challenge to try to find good guests at this hour. That makes it a little difficult. So, here we are. I wanted to get somebody in the studio, although I knew it was last minute, to talk about this so-called HIV cure. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it, and then we'll move on to some other things. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it. I'm going to move the mic out of my own face. Okay, that's a little bit better. Because I think while this has potential, AIDS ain't over yet. And don't be fooled. Don't think that people will have to stop taking their medications if they are treated with this bone marrow. So let me give you a little bit of background. And this is a story from New Scientist. Now, I don't know who New Scientist is affiliated with, but I'm going by this story because it seems they have the facts straight. And the byline is Claire Wilson. Following news of a man in the UK who has been free of HIV since his cancer treatment, a similar case has been reported by researchers who treated a patient in Germany. Together, they add evidence that it may be possible to cure HIV. Now, the virus infects cells of the immune system, as we have all been educated about, which are made in the bone marrow. But this man is known as the Berlin patient, and he was the first person to become HIV-free after a cancer treatment in 2007. To treat his leukemia, which is a cancer of the immune system, he was given a treatment that involved killing nearly all his immune cells with radiotherapy or drugs, and then replacing them with cells from a donor. This donor was naturally resistant to HIV, thanks to a rare but natural mutation in the gene called CCR5. Since then, no one else has had HIV eliminated from their body in the same way until a second case was announced Monday. This person, known as the London patient, was given bone marrow from a donor with the CCR5 mutation as a treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that's another immune cell cancer. He was advised to stop taking the antiviral drugs that keep the virus in check for about a year afterwards. But 18 months later, the virus hasn't returned. Well, guess what? There's a third possible case. That was announced today, and it was announced in Seattle at the Retroviruses and Opportunistic Infections Conference. Biopsies from the gut and lymph nodes of the Dusseldorf patient, or Dusseldorf, I'm sorry, I can't see, showed no infectious HIV after 3 months off antiviral drugs. Only old fragments of viral genes that wouldn't be able to multiply. Researchers are tracking the few other people who have HIV and have had a bone marrow transplant from someone with the CCR5 mutation in collaboration called ICSTEM. As well as the 3 reported so far, there are 2 others who haven't yet stopped taking the antiviral medications. Bone marrow transplants can't be used for people with HIV who don't have cancer because they carry considerable risks and are only used as a last resort. But the fact that the approach seems to work could point the way to other strategies for a cure. One possible method might be to use gene editing to mutate the CCR5 gene in a person's own immune cells. Now, I spoke with my good friend who is head of the infectious diseases department at the Cornell Scott Hill Health Center yesterday as I was trying to find a guest. And she said, people should be aware just because they've heard of this, that AIDS is not yet cured. They're hoping there is a second patient that has been treated in London, and it appears that that person may be functionally cured or in remission, but it's too soon to say that that person is cured. And as far as African Americans are concerned, she said, African Americans should continue to use preventative methods like condoms and PrEP. Now, if you haven't heard of PrEP, trying to give me a cold. No, Siri, I did not summon you. Siri summon. But if you've heard of PrEP, it is a medicine that lessens HIV in the body. And it's been on the market for a few years now, but the issue has always been it has not been promoted well. So they're just, and you probably have seen the commercials, they're just beginning to promote it and promote it to the communities that need it the most. All right. So pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, is a way people who do not have HIV but who are at substantial risk of getting it to prevent HIV infection by taking a pill every day. The pill, which is the brand name of Truvada, contains two medicines that are used in combination with other medicines to treat HIV. All right? So PrEP is a way for people who are at risk, who take risks as supposedly in their sexual activity. So people who do not have HIV but are at substantial risk of getting it to prevent HIV infection by taking this pill every day. The pill contains two medicines that are used in combination with other medicines to treat HIV. So what my friend Dolores Greenlee is saying is that if you are taking PrEP, do not stop. If you're in one of those high-risk categories, men having sex with men, African-American woman, and your partner may be HIV positive, this is a way to prevent getting the virus. So the only thing is, Truvada is a little expensive. Costs between $8,000 and $14,000 a year. They say you also have to figure in the cost of 4 medical checkups annually and possibly lab tests. But you can also check with your insurer to see if your medications are covered. Then they say, although providers worry about the long-term risk of compromising kidneys or depleting bone mineral with PrEP when it's taken for 2 years or more, both clinicians and PrEP candidates should realize that it has short-term side effects. And then they go on to tell you nausea, abdominal pain, vomiting, dizziness, headache, all of those things. So definitely speak with your doctor before you go. And currently, the only drug which has had any health organization recommendations, is PrEP. Okay? And it blocks HIV from incorporating its genetic material into the host genes and thus prevents HIV infection. So if you're in one of the high risk groups and you feel as if you need to take PrEP, inquire with your doctor. And if you're taking PrEP and you're hearing about all of these wonderful probabilities with the London patient and the Dusseldorf patient, which are great, don't stop taking your meds. Please, let's try to eradicate this disease and let's not pass it on to other people. Okay? Take your meds, do as your doctor asks you to do, and hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll learn more about this and I can get somebody on my show to talk about it. Okay. I'm only going to say this once. I'm only going to talk about this once. I am not going to talk about this again. I saw the R. Kelly interview. I saw a piece of it this morning. I think the part that disturbs me the most, and this is Michelle, and this is Michelle's opinion. This is not anyone else's. I am fully responsible for what I'm about to say. It looks to me that R. Kelly needs help. It also sounds to me that R. Kelly did participate in the things that people have said he has done. I feel very badly for the young men who are saying that Michael Jackson molested them. It seems that they had a very close relationship with Michael Jackson. And as Oprah said, this is beyond Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. I've loved the Jackson 5 all my life. But wrong is wrong. And it hurts me to say that publicly. And I hope that these two young men find peace. I hope that the R. Kelly survivors find peace. Because sexual molestation is an awful, awful, awful thing to happen to anyone, but especially children. And when people have to live with that all their lives, it doesn't make for a happy human being. It makes a human being distressed. It makes a human being feel less than human. And you know the saying, always treat everybody kind because you don't know what they're going through. Trust me when I tell you, you don't know what folks are going through, what triggers there are that may bring them back to a certain space, or what are the things that really and truly make life difficult for them. You know, I was told once, well, you know, Michelle, everybody didn't grow up like you. And I said, no, I realize that, and I know that. But I also know that I try to treat everybody well. I try to treat everybody kind. And I felt bad because the person told me that in me sharing my memory of a holiday, which, you know, all of the holidays for me were just fantastic. You know, I had great uncles. I had great aunts. You know, I always had fun with my cousins. It was never a dire situation, especially at my grandmother's house. There were never any arguments during Christmas, New Year. Whenever the Crosbys got together, it was always a good time. And I always carry that with me in my spirit. And so when other people would talk about their holidays and they weren't as mine were, I would immediately shut down because, and it's not to say that I was trying to let someone dim my light, because that's not possible. I dim my light if I want to dim my light. But I'm saying that having the experience of someone tell me for another person that, my memories brought about bad memories for that person. And, nor am I responsible for somebody else's happiness. But what I will say is this, that it was not something that was done in malice. And that's what I explained to the other person, that it was something that was not done in malice. But my point is that in trying to talk about having good memories and bringing about conversation of pleasantries, just sitting down and talking with people, you never know what may be a trigger for someone. So be aware, be tuned in, try to be tuned in to the vibe around you. Always try to pick up little clues, see how folks are doing. It's always not easy for a lot of people to get through this life on a daily basis. It's always not easy for other people to listen, because they weren't brought up to listen. They were brought up to argue, to fight, and to make their point and survive. So just be aware of other people and their triggers, if you will. Be kind. Kindness is gangsta. All right, so St. Patrick's Day Parade is Sunday, correct? I understand it's going to rain. So New Haven has one of the largest St. Patrick's Day parades, if not the largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the state. So if you're going to go out, I suggest that you dress for the weather. And just know that there are a lot of people who have been drinking since early Sunday morning who are going to be on the parade route. I have not been back to the St. Patrick's Day Parade since the mid to late 80s, when I first came home from college. I like parades. I'm a person that grew up with parades. My uncles would take us, my mom would take us, my dad would take us. So we always went to the parades. But with all the people, the crowded sidewalks, the people who've been drinking, and this doesn't mean that the St. Patrick's Day Parade is still like this, but my experience was one of where people had been drinking heavily. They were stumbling out of bars. Excuse me. I almost got thrown up on and cussed out at the same time by somebody stumbling out of a bar. People urinating on sidewalks. So with that, I decided after that I would not be going back to St. Patrick's Day Parade. But the caveat was I lived around the corner from where they gather in New Haven on Winthrop Avenue, Winthrop and Chapel at that time. And so I could go out on the porch and we would put our heavy sweaters on if the weather wasn't too bad. It might be a little chilly, but we had a second floor porch. So we throw on stuff to keep us warm and watch as the folks started to line up and gather for the parade. And for us, that was enough, at least for me anyway. Because you didn't see floats so much, but you saw the bands. You saw all the folks who were going to march. You heard the music as they tuned up. So that experience for me was enough. And now that I'm a little older, parades, don't necessarily float my boat. I can stay home and watch them on TV. So if you're going to the St. Patrick's Day parade, enjoy yourself, be safe, dress for the weather, because I hear that it is going to be quite the weather event. And I would not like to be out in that. Speaking of weather, the reason why I haven't had a show over the past 2 Wednesdays is because of the weather. A lot of snow, a lot of ice. And you know, I, for one, am not a person that likes to travel and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't put anybody else through it to come to my show. Although I've had people show up on occasion when the weather was bad and I wasn't here and they were here, and I felt really bad. And I tried to make it up to them, but needless to say, they did not return calls. And perhaps I should put it out there, you know, that my show is subject to rescheduling. Yeah, I'll put it out there now. Okay, so my show is subject to rescheduling when there is inclement weather. Let me repeat myself. My show is subject to rescheduling if there is inclement weather. Harry knows that. Harry's been playing all my past shows, which told me I needed to get myself in here and sit in a chair, even if I sat here by myself. Because I do appreciate the audience. I do appreciate folks taking out the time to listen. Whether you listen now, whether you listen later on SoundCloud. Never taken an audience for granted. Because you are the folks that kind of make a podcast go. I mean, you know, I can sit here and talk to myself all day long, but if I don't have anybody to listen to it, it will show up in the analytics. And Harry will say to me, well, you know, Michelle, not only have you not been here, but your listenership's a little shaky. So with that said, I seriously hope that you all know, especially people that have followed me from station to station to station. My history has been as such that I have gone from New Haven to Hartford to Fairfield. And in the Hartford and Fairfield situation, both of those were news, and it was news on weekends. And of course, I will be forever grateful to all the folks who listened to the Electric Drum all those many years ago. You know, but you can only rest on laurels for so long, right? We used to copy the commercial in college and say, you know, you're only as good as your last show. So the Electric Drum was an opportunity that sort of rolled into something. I will say this, and I will say this publicly for the first time. I never intended to be a talk show host. Never. And never in my wildest dreams, if you had said to me in college that I would be a talking head on an FM station that was doing and is doing very well in this market, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. My initial piece in going into this business was to give the African American community a voice. I think that was my biggest thing when I was in college. And I don't think I ever I really intended to be a general manager of a radio station. I never intended on being on air. But the reporter bug hit me. And so I was a sports reporter for a hot second in college on the college paper. And I did some DJing while in college. And then when I came home, I said, okay, I'll do that. But never in a million years did I think that I would be on a microphone consistently. Reporter? Yeah, maybe. You know, I've never looked the part for television. I will tell you that now. I was too brown. My hair was never long enough. That was before there were weaves. They'd pop you in a wig back when I first started out. And I was never small enough. I mean, I am an okay size, but, at a certain point, I had, talked to different news directors when I was in college, and they said, well, if you lose another 20 pounds, now, mind you, in college, I was 140 pounds. So if I lost another 20, my mama would have came and got me. My mama and my aunts would have come and got me because I would have looked so sick to them on camera. But that's what they wanted at the time, and I was not willing to do that. My father, God rest his soul, always said to me, "You are not willing to play the game, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm not." Because I just figured I'll do news behind a microphone and nobody will ever see me. Little did I know there was going to be Facebook. But nevertheless, I say all that to say that in all my years of experience, I've always appreciated my audiences, and I appreciate folks listening. It's kind of funny, though, because people still think that I'm doing the electric drum, and I haven't done the electric drum in just about 8 or 9 years, almost 10 years. So just to let you know, this is where I am. It is 103.5 FM. I got to read the disclaimer. 103.5 FM, WNHH. That's what you're listening to. WNHHLP 103.5 FM, as a matter of fact. Broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com, New Haven Independent, or just go to your own Facebook page and look us up. Now, I will say to you that this is the weekend that time goes forward and we start to come out of those coats. And I know a lot of people are going to full fit. A lot of people, Babs included. Another one of my sorors, lots of sorors, Divine Nine folks are at full fit over there on Captain Thomas Boulevard, I believe it is. But I will tell you, it is also a good time for you to just, once it gets a little bit warmer, because, I am not a fan of wintertime. I have a coat that currently goes to my ankles, and I'm good with that. But once the time leaps forward, it's an opportunity for you to get out as it gets warmer and walk around. New Haven is a walkable city, and it's a good time to really get to know the city, because there are people downtown, but there are other parts of the city that you should get to know. There are fantastic places in the Hill as well as in Fairhaven. The Ville has good eating spot. And there's a new place over by Kay's, Harris K. Well, it's not new now because it's been there since, I guess, the fall. Fussy Coffee. You can get you a good turmeric tea. I have to try to get David back in here. He came up here one day, and for the first time in all of my years doing radio, I actually forgot that I had a guest and did not show up for the show, which is very unlike me. But I did. It happened. And I had to get him back on hook or crook. But Fussy Coffee is open. And then there's the rib spot, Ricky D's. And there's even a CrossFit around the corner. And so, there's a lot to explore. There's a lot to explore in New Haven. New Haven is a very walkable city. And once summertime comes, as you know from all of these squad outings, it's plenty to do. There's plenty to do in the wintertime. If you really know where to look for it, Start as simple as looking on your phone, social media. That can give you all the heads up that you need in regard to what's going on, where it is, whether it's a free event. I haven't been to the State House yet, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Want to go to the State House over on State Street, which also used to be, I can't remember the name of the cleaners, but it was a cleaners with the big plants in the window. Remember that? Right diagonally across from Goodfellas and Cast Iron now, which used to be Carmen Anthony's. But definitely get out and use the Farmington Canal too. All that is a pair of sneakers. And now that you have the bikes, you can unlock one of those bikes and go for a ride. Now, I will tell you this. Everybody gets so hyped up about riding on the canal, right? Oh, yeah, we're going to ride. We're going to ride all the way to Cheshire, this, that, and the other. Then they get to Cheshire and realize they got to come back to New Haven. That's a ride. So just be aware of that. But, discover your city a little bit. Know where you live. Try to really get out this spring, walk around a little bit, get to know some of the eateries, get to know some of our traditional pizza again. Because, my daughter eats Domino's. So not what I do. Go to DeLegna's, have a vegan pizza. Go to the pizza place on Wall Street, which is nestled in Yale's campus, but that's some of the best pizza you could ever have. I miss places like Grana Pizza. There used to be a time when I was a young woman in New Haven, and even growing up, you could basically stop anywhere and get a good slice of pizza. Now, not so much. I know there's the debates about Modern and Sally's, which I don't know if that's opened back up yet. And Pepe's. I'm a Pepe's girl. I'm not too much of a fan of a thin crust. Whaley House of Pizza is always a standard. And I like the way they cut the pizza up. You'll always have a little corner in there somewhere. So just get to know your city. Know your city. Know where you live. And make some new friends. I will be traveling. I believe I'm traveling south. And a friend's having their 60th birthday party in Raleigh, North Carolina. And, part of my reason for going is to check Raleigh out because I haven't been there in so long and see what it's like. When I usually go to North Carolina, I'm going to the greatest homecoming on earth. Let me repeat it for you again. The greatest homecoming on earth is usually where I'm going when I'm headed to North Carolina. The Agricultural and Technical State University. We celebrate homecoming hard, but it's a ball. And I get to see all my classmates. But I digress. But I never get to, really see Raleigh. I had been going to CIAA for a couple of years, but I never really got to see Charlotte. Got to see a little bit of Charlotte, but not a whole lot. And Raleigh, I've never really been to besides the airport. So this will be an opportunity for me to check it out because I am seriously considering having the split year. And what's a split year? 6 or 7 months up this way, probably not in Connecticut, I don't know where, and the other 6 to 7 months, someplace warm. And I won't define it as just being the South or Midwest. I will easily say someplace warm, because these winters are getting to me. I have to shovel out my car, and let me tell you, excuse me, last year I was shoveling my car. It had gotten dark, shoveling my car out, and all of a sudden I slipped on a snowbank and I slid almost underneath my car. And there was another car in back of my car because the car was on the street. If I had broken my leg, nobody would have heard me. Nobody would have seen me. I was in between two cars and the snow was piled up past both cars. You couldn't see me from the street from the way that I had fallen. And that was a revelation for me. It's like, if there were a time or a reason for you to examine why you still need to remain in Connecticut, this is it. Now, I will tell you, I'm not an only child. People walk up to me and say, when I have this conversation, because I've been having it for a couple of years, and I sort of hung out in Connecticut because I couldn't find a job down south. And it's not to say I don't love being here, but I just feel like it's time for me to move on. People say, oh, you're going to leave your mother? I got siblings and nieces and nephews here in the area who will make sure my mother has everything that she could possibly want. Not that my mother, if you know my mother, needs anybody's help for anything, she is still wearing 2.5-inch heels after all. We have dubbed her the Great ECT. Great ECT does not need me. And if she needs someone, she has several folks to choose from. So I'm not leaving her in dire straits. And as I said, I am not an only child. So I'm looking at a couple of places, considering Africa, considering the Caribbean, even considering Tampa, because my girl is down there and, she's been down there for a while now and she's doing some really good things. And, that was my road dog at one time. So if there is such a thing, am I dating myself by saying road dog? I might be. But at any rate, a very good friend of mine is there. I actually have two good friends in Florida. Another one lives in Key West. And she's been down there about 3 years. They both have been down there about the same time, same length of time. And, I have nieces and nephews in Atlanta. And of course, my Aggie family. There's a lot of people from New Haven, as well as cousins. I have cousins in Atlanta as well. Charlotte is a consideration, but they don't pay well in Charlotte. Charlotte is a lovely city, but they don't pay well. You get paid more being in Raleigh because you have the technical triangle there. Charlotte is just Charlotte. Charlotte's beautiful. They ain't paying. So, there's a couple of things to be considered. And I hope that this time next year, I will be making a move, a decision. And that does not affect anything that I'm doing here. Let me be clear, because there's always a studio to be found somewhere. But in the meantime, I will enjoy New Haven. I will walk around in its lovely streets for the spring. I think that I will, I'll take a ride down the Farmington Canal. I don't know if I'm going to Cheshire. Might go to Hamden, maybe up to like Stop and Shop in Pier 1. But I'm not doing that. As my friend Babs would say, I'm not doing that. But nevertheless, get out, enjoy your life, enjoy your peoples. If you don't like the blood relatives you have, create your own family, create your own friends, be something to someone, find your tribe. That's been the mantra for about a year. Find your tribe. Those people that have common interest in You can do things together and nobody's mean to you because you didn't do things the way they wanted you to do them. Because we still go through that, right? As adults. You know, I've seen people hang out with people who treat them badly or just aren't really a friend. When you get to be my age, listen. Or as I like to say, man, listen. Get yourself a new set of folks. Or maybe it's time for you to have some alone time. Contemplate, meditate. Talk with your God, whoever that might be. But take some time out for you. Get to know you. And then form your tribe. Hang, with your peoples. Find things to do that you like. Eat what you like within reason. Because now they're talking about we eat too much salt, which I already knew. And if you're African American in America, you probably cut back on your salt 20 years ago. So I don't know what all of this is, because they say, high blood pressure, hypertension, got to cut back your salt. Can't eat the pork the way you used to. Although Minister Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was telling black people that almost 60 years ago. Stay away from those pork rinds. All right. I'm done with talking to myself. It's 6:26. I appreciate you tuning in, listening to me ramble. I so promise you that I will have a guest for the rest of the month because this is exhausting on me. I don't want to hear myself talk this much. But nevertheless, I appreciate you. I thank you for hanging in there and supporting the show and supporting me, holding me up in this community for so many years. You're listening to the show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and the NewHavenIndependent.org. We are also streaming live video on Facebook Live. All you have to do is go to facebook.com/NewHavenIndependent or just go to your Facebook page and look us up. Be here next Wednesday. I almost said Tuesday. No, child. I'm not here on Tuesdays at all. But be here next Tuesday. Here I go. I am tired. Be here next Wednesday because you never know who's going to be on the show. Got to get Tony McLean back in the studio because there's some different things that I wanted to talk to him about. Yukon girls, and some moves in sports that really may make a difference. So, again, be on the lookout for some sports. We've got a couple of women's history shows coming up. So, again, join me next Wednesday because you never know who's going to be on the show. Thank you, Harry, for putting up with my babbling. Appreciate you.